Well, I'm back, and today I'd like to do just a brief tutorial for you that has to do with the use of the spackling. I know I mentioned it in the written tutorial, but we didn't include it in the video, frankly, because I forgot to bring it along. So I'm back and looking forward to introducing you to that product in case it's a new one for you. What I'm talking about isn't probably going to be available everywhere, so do the best you can to find it if this interests you. It's literally called Fast and Final. And it isn't a spackling in the sense of classic spackling, which was more like a really heavyweight, almost like a concrete-y kind of stucco product. This is real light, and that's one of the tip-offs. If you're at the store looking around for a product and the bucket weighs a ton, that's not going to be the right product. So this stuff is basically related to all other kinds of gel medium and acrylic products, and it can be managed really easily with a squeegee. You can use a credit card. You don't have to have a fancy schmancy one like I've got here. But the point is to literally, I'm working on a box. As a matter of fact, I'm working on the box I never got around to using in the earlier video. I'm going to, instead of using the inside of the box this time, I'm going to coat the outside back of the box with the spackling and then proceed to design and work my assemblage on that surface. You could work on a flat canvas if you want to. That would be rigid enough, and those are very inexpensive. You can find them at art supply, craft type places. And I don't really want the spackling to go around the edges. So I'm going to spackle from the inside out, and that way I won't get it on the sides. I didn't ever take Cake Decorating 101, but it's a lot like that. So I can build up a fairly thick coat of spackling if I'm intending to submit or sink some large things into the surface, or I can do what I sometimes refer to as skim coating. And a skim coat, the straighter I use the squeegee, the thinner the application is to the surface. I'm going to make it relatively thick because I'd like to sink some of my favorite stones, which have been collected all over the place. I like to use those and work like this. I guess I'm in kind of a meditative mood, and I like the idea of using these natural objects, although, as you saw in the other video, this could be a background for all sorts of found objects. I'm actually going to add a piece of watercolor paper that has a botanical print on it. And if I wanted to, I could take a skewer. I don't have a skewer handy. I could take a skewer. I could take any object I could draw and mark into the paste while it's still wet. So that's another option. And if I don't like the way that looks, I can smooth it right out. If there's anything about this that you want to pay attention to, it's that you don't want a lot of little pieces that are standing up, because those won't be very stable and they will break off later. So you want to keep it fairly smooth. Now, this is a botanical print that I made on cotton that has been fused to watercolor paper. This is another class I teach. But I love this particular image. This red was actually created using this lace that had been dipped in dye. That's another story. I like this, and I want my theme to be nature here. So first I'm going to sink this botanical print down into the surface. And the point of showing you this is that the spackling will actually act as the adhesive. Now I can leave that clean edge, or I could take the squeegee and I could pull a little spackling right out onto the surface of the print. Which sometimes helps to incorporate whatever it is you're adding a little bit more, because it looks as though then it's built into the surface. And remember to work out to the edges if that's the look you're interested in achieving. I'm just going to do a little bit of it that way. This stuff can't hurt your hands, so you don't really need gloves. If you get much of it on your work surface, it won't come off later, so do be aware of that. Now, that's what I've got so far, and I'm pleased with how that looks. I think I'd like to introduce a little bit of gold leaf into this piece. So you can buy gold leaf in packages that I buy it by 1,000 sheets at a time because I use it so much in my other work. But you can buy a package that's this size, which is usually, it's a pretty standard size, like 6 3/4 inches square, and usually 25 sheets in a pack. It comes in pages, and it's very, you can see, very sort of ethereal is the word that's coming to mind. There isn't a right or wrong side. You ideally would turn off the ceiling fans because this stuff will blow around. It's very thin so it can shatter. And I can sink this into the spackling, which is what I'm going to do right now. Now I have this soft brush, and as long as the spackling is wet, oh, I'm even getting a little unexpected color that was already in the brush, which is turning out to be kind of a nice thing. Which leads me to this point, that the spackling can be painted or colored. I wouldn't mix color into the spackling. I wouldn't mix paint into the spackling because it'll thin it. But as you can see, I've gotten this surprise element of color because the color was already on the brush. So whoever didn't clean the brush, which is probably me, I've got them to thank. Now I'm going to clean up the edges a little bit, keep it nice and square. And then I'm going to add some elements by sinking them directly into the spackling. And I auditioned before we started filming, so I'm going to keep my poetic theme going with my stones. So you do have to have enough spackling, you see, that you can sink the stones. Otherwise, you know, if you had technical error later, the stones popped off or some object you were trying to embed popped out, it would be okay because you could always add a little bit of glue and glue it back in. I'm going to clean up that edge again. Now I think I'm going to go ahead and put some stones directly into the spackling where that gold leaf was applied as a way of kind of breaking up that rectangular surface. I had some other objects. I thought about incorporating that lace, which I could have done if I'd ironed it. I could tap that back into the spackling and it would work. I had some leftover vertebrae from a roadkill and a little seashell because, as I say, I'm kind of on this nature theme here. But I think this is enough. You could go overboard or you could keep it simple. This is what I've created and I'm going to stop now and I'm pleased with it. The spackling takes a couple hours, maybe a little bit longer to dry, depending on how thick it is. So don't rush things. Let everything dry flat. And just in case you didn't like something or you wanted to change it, you could rough up the spackling or sand it down. Once I've got these objects there, I'm pretty much committed. But if I wanted to sand along this edge, I could do that too. And in order to do that, I'd get a sanding block, which is like sandpaper wrapped around a kind of a sponge type thing. Or regular sandpaper would work too. But the point is, it's very sturdy once it dries. And it's a great way to get the assemblage off the ground. Okay, so that's basically how to use the spackling. You can add it to the toolbox of all the other things that we've already talked about. And I'll look forward to seeing what you come up with. Have a great time.